Hey everybody, Chad Riedlinger back again with another episode of the Mortgage Lab. I got my very special guest today, Scott Groves. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever somebody's listening to this.
I know everybody, a lot of people in our industry, they already know who you are. I know you're very visible in a lot of the groups that I'm in and different the Mortgage Loan Officer Network and different events that I've been at. And I met you in Orlando about a year ago. Been part of your coaching group. So for the two people that don't know who you are, go ahead and give us a little bit of background on who Scott is.
Yeah, Scott Groves, pretty boring story. Barely graduated high school, went to the Army, got out of the Army, ended up at Washington Mutual, have kind of the same loan officer origin story that every other loan officer has. Like no one grows up wanting to be a loan officer. Yep. I did okay, but not great. Leading up to 2009, I was just an in-house retail loan officer at Washington Mutual. Obviously, Washington Mutual, like many companies, no longer exist. And, went through that headache and turmoil of 08, 09, 2010, and then really found my footing in the purchase business. Started in 2011, met some great people, made some fortuitous realtor relationships, and kind of just doubled business through that 2011, 2012, 2013, 14. Almost have hit 100 million a couple times individually, hit over 100 million with my former business partner, Justin Bale, who still love the guy. We just now work at different companies, and still just a full-time producing loan officer at Movement Mortgage. And that's kind of spun itself into doing some coaching for other loan officers. So, just kind of doing the same struggle that everybody else is on a daily basis, getting in some coaching on Thursdays and Sundays with people, and attempting to still be a good family man, husband, and father to 3 kids. So just, a busy schedule like the rest of us.
Yeah, so let me ask you a question real quick. When did you originally start out in the business? What year was it?
I started out in 2000, right after I got out of the Army.
All right, cool. So you're literally almost on the same exact timeline that I was. So I started in 2000, Bank of America. Yep. So it was real. I think, we started in the bank world, got out of the bank world in like 2011, literally. So I was at Bank of America until 2009, went to PNC Mortgage for a year and a half as a area manager, and then realized I needed to get back into production. So did that in 2011. So we are literally on the same exact timeline as far as kind of where we jumped around, and when we also found our footing. Right. 2011 for you, same for me. So tell me a little bit about the coaching before we kind of get into a little bit more of the tactical advice and strategy for loan officers and managers today. But tell me a little bit more about the coaching that you do right now.
Yeah, so great. About 5-6 years ago, when I was at Movement Mortgage, made a detour to try the management thing, hated it, came back to Movement Mortgage to be a producer. Frankly, because of our high loan amounts out here in Southern California, I kept showing up as number one on the leaderboard at Movement Mortgage. People would call me for advice. I'd be like, hey, there's a lot of people doing a lot more units than me. I just have a high volume. Call them. Well, you know how that goes. People call you for advice. All of us in the industry that have kind of paid our dues want to give back to people in the industry. But I just found that it was a 5-minute call here, a 20-minute call here, a 15-minute call there. So I just said, hey, everybody get on a call Thursday morning and we'll just kind of talk through anybody's questions. That morphed into a coaching program, kind of a labor of love, where I wrote a book called, this is my dirty tabbed out copy, but Lead Generate 61 Days to Double Your Pay.
I read it. Oh,
thank you.
Good book. Yep.
Yeah, really just kind of getting in that daily habit of lead generation. None of us really want to do it, but you got to make those connection calls every day. It just has to become part of your life, just like brushing your teeth. And then, it all just kind of materialized into a coaching format where now we've got a bunch of great coaching clients and helping them grow their business and really just checking in daily to make sure we're doing those daily habits that help build a business.
And I'll put in the notes as well some links to where they can find you, but where can they find your coaching?
Consolidatedcoaching.com. And as you know, I'm pretty active and a bit of a loudmouth on Facebook. So people can just find Scott Groves on Facebook and we'll get to know each other there.
You got to have an opinion. Right? So,
yeah.
So, and it's funny. So I kind of take the same approach of, I think that what I get from you is that you didn't really care so much for the management thing, right? It's tough to manage loan officers, right? We're not easy people to please. but you still want to share. So I think like the coaching group is a really happy, medium there to be able to still be able to give without having to worry about like whether or not they're implementing the strategies as much as like if they came and worked directly for you. One of the hardest things that I've had to wrestle with in my past was like you give them the advice, they work directly for you, then they're coming and they're complaining that their business isn't growing, but they're not actually doing any of the advice that you're giving them. So like this, in your platform now, even though you want them to implement these things, it's like if they don't, they're not like, knocking at your door saying, "Hey boss, like my business sucks."
Right. I found two different items on that path. And one is it's very hard to be somebody's coach and be their manager. Because when you're the manager and you're approving time cards and pricing exceptions and marketing requests and whatnot, that's a different mindset. That's a different skill set. That's a different, managing the P&L versus like, let me give you sales training, relationship building training, accountability. I've just found those two things to be dramatically different. And there's some world-class people in the mortgage industry that have found a way to be both. But I know for me personally, I trust my manager that I currently have in the mortgage business. I trust him to do the managerial stuff. I pay a couple $1,000s a month for an outside coach because those are two very different conversations.
Right.
And so what I felt that I just had a passion for, and my previous business partner, Justin, I just have different passions for this. He loves organizing the nuts and bolts and helping build the file and, help his loan officers find the best pricing. That's just not what gets me up in the morning. What I want to do is get up in the morning and do my own loans and then talk to people about sales techniques and connection techniques and, scripting and kind of guerrilla organic marketing and holding yourself accountable. So, it's just kind of a different skill set is what I found. And I really enjoy the coaching side of it. And I really enjoy the loan officer side of it.
Yep.
Management, not going to ever be for me.
Yeah, no, and it's funny. Look at Michael Jordan, right? Sometimes the best players aren't the right coaches. It's a very different skill set. And what I found for me was like getting the business came easy for me, and then whereas it doesn't for other people, and then that would kind of, I would say, hey, go do this, and they would come back and not do it. Now you mentioned a couple things that I want to touch on briefly here. So one is you had a partner before. You guys kind of went, I've had a partner for 8 years in my business, Howard, where he's definitely the technician, the man behind the curtain, and loves putting deals together, loves figuring out how to make it work, all that stuff. Like I, did that out of necessity, but that never was I love the sales and marketing side of thing. Like that's what I'm passionate for. A lot of the things that you talk about as well. And it's interesting how that dynamics worked really well for Howard and I, because he doesn't care to be the guy in the spotlight. He doesn't care to get any of the credit. He's just like, hey, just bring the deals in and we're going to get them all figured out and make sure that we don't break the system. So talk a little bit about partnerships and just like, because are you a Gary Vee fan at all?
Big time.
Okay. And he talked about this recently about, how him and his dad were partners in business and how it struggled, but how him and his brother are partners in business and how it's fantastic because of their personality types. Like what advice can you give to people out there that either are thinking about partnerships or have partnerships, just kind of what, based on your experience?
Yeah, I think as far as the partnership, like I was in a partnership with the perfect person. My buddy Justin, we're still friends. We hang out together. He is that kind of nuts and bolts. I don't just say this because I worked with him. I say it because it's true. Like every room that we were in, Justin was the smartest person in mortgage in that room as far as understanding guidelines, structuring deals, seeing around corners with potential problems. And I was definitely more of the, salesy, motivate the troops. Let's not forget to have our team meeting stuff. So as far as managing, we were in a great partnership. And I would definitely say you need a partnership where people bring different skills. And the thing that we decided from day one was, hey, we're going to go all in 50-50. It's no, these are your deals. These are my deals. These realtors are mine. These are yours. You'll work on this file. It's like, no, everything's 50-50. We're going to put every penny into the same jar and we're just going to split it 50-50 at the end of the month. And that worked really well for us. I just decided I didn't like the managerial side of it,
Right.
and I'll tell you a funny example that, this is what you kind of just have to come to grips with when you are taking on a managerial role and solving other people's problems. And everybody I'm about to mention, I love them to death personally. So if they happen to be listening to this, I'm not going to use your name, but you know who you are. And I love you personally on a very deep level. But I remember this one day, Justin and I, we were both there at 6:30 in the morning or something, and we're knocking out loans and solving people's problems. And one of our loan officers, again, who I love dearly, rolls in at 10 o'clock because he works out for 3 hours every morning and has a body like a Greek god, even though he's 45. And, this other dude who's like staying home with his kids in the morning because his wife's in her PhD program, he rolls in at 10:30, 11 o'clock. And I'm just kind of looking at my partner and I'm like, hey, Justin, I love these guys. But at the end of the day, like, I want to have the Greek god body. I want to be able to stay home in the mornings with my family. I don't want to be here solving other people's problems for, a 10 basis point override. I want to be spending time with my family and then solving my own problems for 100 basis points.
Right.
And, I know that's very selfish of me. And I think I give back in other ways with the coaching and whatnot. But I just decided for me, it was going to take too long to grow to that level where the override was basically worth the upfront work. And I think our industry is changing so dramatically. It's like, to get to critical mass of just being a full-time manager, it takes a lot of production and a lot of healthy loan officers working underneath you. And I just didn't have the stomach and the mental fortitude to do that. So I think going into partnerships or going into into a managerial role, you got to have that long-term vision of what you want to do and how you're going to retain these people. Because I know for me and several others that I've talked to, this kind of being half pregnant, where, you're kind of managing, you're kind of doing your own production. And then since you're not all in on managing, you start to lose loan officers. You're like, well, I lose loan officers, so now I got to do more production. It's just a very dangerous path to go down. And I think a lot of people, they end up wasting a lot of time and energy, not knowing whether they should just be a producer or whether they should be a manager, because they're very different.
Yeah, I had a call with a loan officer the other day, or actually he was a sales manager for a bank, and it's the same exact conversation. Now his override was 5 basis points, and his production was, I think he was like a 75 basis point payout. But like similar to what your thing is, I explained to him, when your scenario, you have to bring in 10x the volume for your branch to be the equivalent of you doing one extra loan. Like, and then imagine the amount of work that 10 times volume is going to be. So I agree with you. I think either go all in on the management piece and be like the best of the man, and tout that. Say, hey, I'm not producing, so I'm going to be at I'm literally going to give my all to support you, or be the producer. I feel like sometimes the ego gets in the way of like, I want both, and
Right.
and I think that's what hurts people, and they don't even see it happening. But like you just alluded to, like they're causing themselves more pain than anything, because they can't be as efficient as they need to be on the activities that they need to focus on.
Well, I also think there's a big misstep earlier in the process that leads to this. And this is going to be my little rant and my little pet peeve, and my little companies might get a little upset with me. But I think the misstep starts all the way back at the go ahead and hire yourself a junior loan officer, Chad or Scott or whatever. And I've told people, like, maybe you have your LOA who's more of a support person, but before you make that second hire, let's call it, you've got to go talk to your spouse, talk to your mentor, talk to your coach, have a drink. I'm in California, so I can say this. Go smoke a bowl. Do whatever you have to do to get in touch with your inner peace, because you have to make a very clear decision early in your career when you're growing. And one decision is, hey, I am going to hire employees. I'm going to hire people that are a high S or a high C on the DISC profile. I'm going to hire people that know that they work for Scott Groves, and I take care of them very well. But their income is going to be somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 a year, because they are an employee of the machine. They are an employee of the machine, which builds all of Scott Groves' loans. Or You say, hey, you know what? I'm going to hire other sales people underneath me. I'm going to help them grow my business. I'm going to hand off some of my, lower value leads or the refinances or the smaller loans to this person. I'm going to support this person becoming a fully self-sufficient loan officer. Then I'm going to replicate that and replicate that and replicate it. And one day I wake up and I'm a sales manager with 5, 6, 10, 20 loan officers producing who I'm making an override over. Where I think so many loan officers go wrong is they're not quite at that point where their production justifies a new hire, or they're scared to give up some of their own money up front to grow. So, the being kind of pregnant for her Bill, and why don't you just make him your junior loan officer, because he's only doing 1 or 2 loans a month. So he'll work on your loans and then he'll work on his loans. No, I say no to that. I call bullshit. If somebody can't be successful as a loan officer for themselves, why do you think they're going to be successful as a loan officer working for you? And if you do train them how to be a great loan officer, they've already told you by the fact that they were a loan officer before, right, that they want to be the number one person on the deal team, that they want to go get deals. They don't want to work for you if you teach them how to be successful. So you've got to make this decision very early on. Do you want to be Shant at guaranteed rate, who has, however many people he has working for him, 10, 20, 30, 40, but they all work for Shant and they put loans in Shant's name and his name is on the marquee and he has employees? Or do you want to be, my buddy Jeff Brown in Charlotte, who hired loan officer after loan officer after loan officer and now is one of the most successful leaders in Movement Mortgage because he's got, 35 killers and top producing loan officers underneath him? There's no right or wrong answer.
Right. Yep.
But I have seen people waste years and leave hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table because they're like, well, in order to get some more support for myself, I've got to call myself a loan manager and a sales manager and kind of have some sales people work for me, but then they'll work on my deals sometimes. That doesn't work. Either believe in yourself, hire employees, give up some income ahead of demand to hire the next employee, the next employee, and the next employee, and believe in yourself that you can produce that volume and have employees that you manage, or get a bunch of junior loan officers and become a manager one day. But that in-between stage, that is a career killer for so many loan officers.
And I'm so glad you shared that because, that could save people years and, like you said, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you mentioned DISC profile, which I'm extremely passionate about. Like every single person we hire, we DISC profile them. And the few times that we didn't because the person came on a high recommendation, and this was very early on. So going back to like 2012, maybe 13, where we kind of veered off of our strategy, we paid dearly for it. Like, so I'll give you one quick example. We had a loan partner that we hired. So I would bring in all the business for our team, and then Howard would kind of run the back end. Same as you, we were 50-50 partners, P&L branch. And so everything was 50-50. There was no my business, your business. It was just our business. So one of our guys that we hired as a loan partner, it was our fault. We didn't DISC profile him. And Howard spent 1.5 years working with this loan partner. And I still talk to him today. I still like the guy, but he wanted to be us. And so we could have found that out in 2 seconds on the DISC profile, based on where he was with the D and the I, and we didn't. So Howard spent 1.5 years. We give them all of our realtor referrals. They take the lead from lead up until processing, and then we hand it off to our processing team. We got him up to doing $35 to $40 million a year in production. And then he left. So, don't make that mistake because, yes, we can retain some of the referral partners, some we lost. Like nobody owns referral partners. And so, that we paid dearly, but that was like, you pay for an education, right? So we paid for like a Harvard education there of like what not to do. Right. And we put all the loans in their names. So they are showing up on all the reports. Like if you would look up Chad Riedlinger on a sales report, I would show no volume because we're non-producing managers and we gave everything to our loan partners. But it's just one of those things that don't veer off. You have to have a hiring process and you got to know what you want to do in the, like you said, the end goal in mind. Otherwise you're going to pay dearly for it in the future for sure.
Yeah, there's a great book, and it's literally, I think on Audible, it's like 4 or 5 hours. It's a quick listen. It's called Who, WHO, and maybe you can link to it in the show notes.
Yep.
If you're hiring anybody from janitor to CEO, you should absolutely read the book Who, WHO. and write out a scorecard. And they lay this all out in the book. Write out a job description and a scorecard for who you're hiring, and then test and interview for that position. Because I think what so many people do in the mortgage industry is they say, oh my God, I'm busy, my hair's on fire, give me a body. And it's like, okay, great. Well, now you've got this body. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it was a referral, maybe it was somebody else in the company. And you're like, tell me if you've ever ended up in this situation, Chad. You're looking around, you're like, wow, I got some really good people on the team. I have no clue what they do.
Yep.
You know, and you're like, I really like them. They seem to work hard, but like, I don't really know what they do or how they're playing into my operation. So until you as the loan officer, and let's not forget loan officer, you're the highest paid person in the mortgage transaction. You need to act like it. So you need to have your checklist, your workflow, a scorecard for the people that you're hiring, a job description for what they do. You can probably boil it all the way down to even one sentence or one kind of guiding mission or guiding principle for them. But if you don't do that before you hire, you are setting yourself up for failure, because you're going to end up hiring good people that they don't know what they're supposed to do and you don't know what to do with them. So read that book, Who. It was a game changer for us.
I'll put that in the show notes. And I actually moved the DISC profile like right in the front of the process. I won't even meet with them first, because like us as salespeople and extroverts, like I'm going to like anybody I sit in front of, and we're going to get along. And I'm like, oh, I should hire that person. So I do it before I even interview them, because otherwise, if I interview them first, I'm going to make up some excuse in my head why they're the perfect fit for the position,
Exactly.
even though their skill set says they're the wrong person for the position.
Yeah. My business partner and I did this a couple years ago with a guy. We were like, oh, he's got all of these kind of intangibles that we like. He'll probably be a great loan officer one day, but we can't really bring him in as a loan officer. Let's bring him on as this like assistant / this / that. It was just
They're making up positions for him.
Making up positions, right? Yeah. You need to create the position and then fill it with a person, not hire a person and then pray that they fill in some gaps. And so sure enough, a year and a half later, we basically had to let him go. And now he's found a training program at a call center atmosphere. He's crushing it. He's got 45 locks. He's learning the business. He's getting through a ton of files. And it's like, that was the right position for him. So forget about us for a minute, the loan officer, the person that hires incorrectly. When you hire somebody incorrectly, you remove the opportunity for them to find what they could be great at or fit into a role that they're great at.